Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Find Me Falling. Find Me Falling is an American romantic dramedy that tells the story of John Allman, a rock star who retreats to Cyprus following a failed comeback album. He gets a lot more than he bargained for with his new home away from home, especially when he comes across an old flame named Sia who happens to live in the same area he stays. Despite the amount of time that passed between the two, the feelings they have for each other are still there, although more complicated from the lives they lived since they last met. Their reconnection boasts an opportunity for John to pull himself up again and become a new man, with some surprises along the way. I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised with how this movie turned out. It tells a simple story of rekindling lost love in an emotionally effective way, backed by its immersive setting and thoughtful musical elements. The romance itself could have been handled a bit better, but everything else surrounding it helps it stand out more. The main character John, played by Harry Connick Jr., starts off fairly typical in presentation and thus takes time to get used to. He's a typical washed-up grouch who runs from his problems instead of facing them head-on, and while he is sympathetic in a general sense because of this, it's not much different from other stories like his. As the story progresses, he becomes a lot more relatable. He starts to lower the walls he sets up around people and becomes more empathetic, and Connick Jr. gets to showcase his musical talents to reflect the growth his character undergoes. While his prickly demeanor can be off-putting at times, it's nice to see his character grow as a person and restore faith in himself. A lot of this change is brought on by the other main character, Sia, who is also a great character in her own right. She has her own aspirations separate from John, this time as a doctor who serves her community, but feels like she's missing something. When John comes back into her life, she finally feels that spark again, but also has to contend with family pressure, and it was interesting to see how she managed this. I have to give major props to the filmmakers as well for casting an actual Cypriot woman in Sia's role. They could have easily cast a well-known Hollywood actress and given her a fake accent, but by casting Agnes Scott in her role and allowing her to speak her native language with other characters, it lends more credibility to the love story about to unfold. This love story, however, became my biggest source of contention with the movie. Not because it's bad, but because of how it's paced. It takes a long time for anything romantic to happen, and when the two finally meet each other again for the first time in years, they're almost immediately passionate, and it's like, whoa, okay. There's something about the romantic tension that didn't quite feel right with me. I can accept two former flames wanting to make up for lost time and that there'd be a lot of awkward tension afterward, but their dynamic switches back and forth between on and off throughout the story, so it was hard to latch onto them in the beginning. Like with John though, this awkwardness fades away over time. The chemistry between Connick Jr. and Scott becomes evident the more time they spend with each other, and I loved seeing the two build each other up. The movie does a great job communicating the love and history between these two characters, even if it feels weird in the beginning. The other characters in the movie suit the story well too. One of my favorite characters was Melina, who's like a female version of John in terms of her own musical aspirations. I was worried that the movie was going to use her in some kind of love triangle with how she's introduced, but I'm glad that this wasn't the case, and I enjoyed seeing how she and John influenced each other. Other supporting characters add to the story too, both in terms of comedic and dramatic content. Whether it involves an eccentric police officer or a pregnant woman caught in a difficult position, it feels like every character has a role in helping John realize what's important in life. One of the things I love the most about this movie is how it embraces the culture and traditions of Cyprus. It never feels like a typical rom-com where the main character goes to a foreign country and falls in love. The Cyprus setting gives the movie a sense of identity that goes way beyond just taking the main character into a foreign setting, exploring entire generations of characters imparting wisdom onto John and Sia. This makes the movie's environment feel more real and authentic, and that's without getting into the scenery, which is jaw-dropping to look at. The use of Mediterranean visuals from the food, to the city, to the countryside, all highlight how much of a fish out of water that John is, and ties in well with the escapist nature of the story. This also factors well into the more comedic aspects of the story too. The culture clashes between John's rock star way of life and those of the local citizens always make for funny situations. Even without John involved, there's still hilarious moments. Something as simple as an old man in a hospital wondering who's running his family's shop is great in how it plays out. However, the movie also does a great job balancing its more dramatic elements. The romantic history between John and Sia is always taken seriously, and the very place where John stays is a suicide hotspot that's used to reflect the growth he undergoes. Sometimes tonal shifts do occur, which can be jarring, but for the most part I appreciated how the movie uses comedy and drama in the right places. The musical scenes are also entertaining to watch. I'm not sure how many of the songs are original, but it's great to see the actors actually singing and playing instruments. Too many rom-coms similar to this use a theme like music as a crutch to move the story along without actually using it in a meaningful way. But here, it's completely different. While Harry Connick Jr.'s already existing musical talent definitely helps, I just love how the music ties into what happens in the story. The lyrics, while basic in approach, directly correlate to what happens from beginning to end, and combined with how well the set pieces are produced and how the other actors give it their all when performing, the music is simply a treat. Most of what happens in this movie isn't entirely original. The narrative structure is still fairly predictable, as can be expected from it being a romance story, but I still enjoyed seeing how John and Sia fell back into each other's lives. And I will say the twist that happens halfway through the movie did a great job in shaking things up when it needed to. The theme of existentialism is also put into great effect. Everything from the suicides outside John's home to supporting characters pondering career aspects all revolves around people's innate desire to find meaning in their lives. And it's nice to see the movie use this theme as a message to its audience that it's never too late to chase after something you love. Overall, Find Me Falling is a refreshing romantic dramedy that makes great use of its foreign setting while remaining a fun and thought-provoking love story. If you like romances that take place in international settings and want to see one that's relaxing while still engaging, you should check this one out. While its framework is similar to other romance flicks and the romance itself could stand to be a bit more engaging, everything else from the characters to the music to the comedy is so enjoyable that it doesn't matter all that much. If you find yourself tired by how cliche the genre has become, I suggest you give it a watch, and who knows, maybe you'll end up falling for it too. And if you did happen to see it, what did you think about this movie? Did you appreciate how it took advantage of its setting, or did you think the romance wasn't up to par? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Find Me Falling. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Mexican action comedy, Non-Negotiable. Bye bye!